Shalom, blessings in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. I could not find that passage about Jesus sneaking past the angels to be born into the flesh, but I will find it in God's timing. For now, I'm going to do a take 2 of flying fiery serpents, the Nachash, Seraphim. It is important to understand that when we speak about the Nachash, Seraph, or Seraphim, that we address the distinctions between a snake and this supposed serpentine being. This serpent mentioned in Genesis 3 was a very special type of reptile. I don't want to say special, but it wasn't a regular snake. This creature stood upright, was endowed with reason, and had the ability to communicate with Eve in language and dialogue. Not only was this Nachash endowed with these certain traits, it is also mentioned as being the most cunning of the Lord's creatures in its ability to beguile or seduce others into committing sin. The serpent depicted in the garden was more like a basilisk than a snake, and was associated also to seraphim, the 6-winged celestial angels that had once served before the face of Yahuwah, but being led in rebellion by Lucifer became those rebel angels which lost their first estate. They lost their first estate during the prior rebellion and war in heaven, which occurred during the First World Age. These angels were later joined by the fallen watchers that fell during the time of the Second World Age. The seraphim angels are the Nachash, dragon angels that were banished from the upper heavens by Michael and the cherubim, and Yahuwah himself had to come and save the day. This order of angels is also cited in the book of Enoch as being the draconis serpents. In Hebrew, Nachash is translated shine, as in the shine of brass, or translated as a whisper, like in the subtle chanting of an incantation or conjuring of enchantment. The Nachash was not and is not a literal snake, especially in the sense of about on its belly. This Nachash was, in a literal sense, a shining enchanter, capable of shrewd, smooth, or slick behavior that he utilized in deceiving Eve. I firmly believe that this Nachash was, as suggested, an angel diviner or enchanter who, as guardian of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, beguiled Eve into initially eating the forbidden fruit. It was only after the seduction of Eve and her sharing sin with Adam that this serpent was then placed on its belly. Meaning that it had prior been able to walk upright before the curse, which stripped it of its limbs. In his curse upon the serpent, the Lord also condemned this Nachash to then feed off of the dust of the earth. I believe this dust is symbolic of the dust that Adam's physical body was made of, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Speaking of which, and that what the Lord was alluding to in this particular passage was the fact that these dragon lords not only feed on the flesh and blood of humanity, but also demand from those that worship them the sacrifice of innocent human victims. And that they also then feed upon in frenzied ritual anytime the blood of innocence is shed upon the earth. Yes, when the blood was offered, forth came they to dwell among men. This is from Emerald Tablet 8, a little excerpt. In the form of man moved they amongst us, but only to sight where were they as our men. Serpent-headed when the glamour was lifted, but appearing to man as men among men, crept they into the councils, taking forms that were like unto men, slaying by their arts the chief of the kingdoms, taking their form and ruling over man. Only by Yahuwah could they be discovered? It says magic, but we know that magic to be the Most High. He will reveal them to us in his good time. Only by sound could their faces be seen, and we know that certain pitches will cause glass to break and all kinds of things, and salt to move around on a table. So sound could their faces be seen. Sought they from the kingdom of shadows to destroy man and rule in his place. And again, that's from Emerald Tablet 8. In studying the roots of serpent worship around the world, one will find the same story being related worldwide. Those cultures that worship the fallen angels as a pantheon of little g gods were often the ones that received high knowledge and instruction on elevating their civilization from beings that were reported as holding serpentine form, much like Quetzalcoatl and Kukulkan. And we know that, a little over 100 years ago, we were all running around on horseback. I wonder how that happened, how we got so much technology so quickly, obviously these Nachash had something to do with it. The feathered serpent is just one of the embodiments of the ancient Nachash. The roots of serpent worship precede the flood and even the creation of modern humanity. Post-flood, it was the descendants of Ham, specifically the Canaanites, that were responsible for the reinstitution of serpent worship. Idolatry and the reverence of these fallen beings, guised as the benefactors and providers of humanity post-flood. But they are not our creators or our benefactors, and we know that now. And from Jubilees 8, we read, "He found a writing which former generations had carved on the rock. He read what was thereon. He transcribed it and sinned owing to it. For it contained the teaching of the watchers in accordance with what they used to observe the omens of the sun and moon and stars in all the signs of heaven. And he wrote it down and said nothing regarding it, for he was afraid to speak to Noah about it, lest he should be angry with him on account of it." And we know that was Ham. And again, that was from Jubilees chapter 8. One can read about and trace the roots of serpent worship and idolatry to the earliest post-flood civilizations in a book called Worship of the Serpent, Traced Through the World and Its Traditions, referred to the events in paradise, written by John Bathurst Deane and published in 1860. For more information on the things that I have and will be mentioning here, you can get that book. The Nachash are the fallen angels known to us as the Seraphim. They are the dragons of old, which kept not their first estate, and who also established idolatry as a way to usurp the worship of the only true God, the Most High and Creator of us all. This deception would serve to not only lead the world astray, but would feed Satan and the fallen ones with the veneration they so lavishly desire in their pursuit to be as little g gods themselves. Idolatry, as spoken of in the wisdom of Solomon, is the root of all confusion and sin. Unless one understands that idolatry is associated to the worship of these dragon lords as gods, and that this worship of these dragon lords as gods, and that this worship is directly associated to the beguiling and seduction of Eve by the Nachash of Genesis 3, one would not know why the Lord hates idolatry as an institution, and why the first two commandments of the Ten Commandments has to do with idolatry and the worship of foreign little g gods, and placing others before Him, our actual Creator, the Most High, Yahuwah, Amen. Another incident of particular interest associated with the Nachash is a rebellion mentioned as having taken place during the exodus from Egypt under the leadership of Moses and Aaron by the children of Ham, who, like the people of Egypt, worshipped serpents as their gods. The Egyptian little g gods, like the pagan little g gods of other nations, were the hybrid demi little g gods, born of the copulation of angels with the daughters of men. In the earliest days of our ancestors, the fallen ones appointed themselves rule over the vast cultures and civilizations that were then springing up worldwide. They were the ones that spawned the hybrid lines celebrated through all pagan nations and religions as the overseers of humanity. Those that look into these connections will find that the Egyptian little g gods, as well as the pharaohs that ruled over Egypt, are often depicted as partially serpentine or are depicted with serpents, relating their association to and reverence for the Nachash of Genesis 3. We see the Egyptians with the cobras on their headbands. The children of Ham, for their rebellion, were punished by the reptilian beings that they had worshipped. For such trespass, the Lord allowed the Nachash that they worshipped to punish them, much like that which will be repeated with the return and release of the locust army from the north, to be unveiled with the release of the 4 angels from the river Euphrates at the end of days. The locust army will, at that time, serve as a repeat of this particular incident, in that they will also be released to punish those that still worship these serpent beings as the returning Anunnaki star gods. Do not for a minute believe that they are gods. Amen. The serpents that were sent against the children of Ham as punishment were not snakes in the traditional sense of the word, as a Nachash of Genesis 3 was also not a simple snake. The serpents of the locust army will also not be simple snakes, but will be supernatural beings utilized by Yahuwah to punish those not written into the book of life, as a repeat of what happened before in the Exodus. And here we can see some demonic mermaids climbing aboard ships. And we also know that the sirens used to call men with their songs. These are from Satan. I used to worship them. I used to hold them as something holy and sacred, and they're not. They're demonic creatures. Same are fairies. Fairies are also evil. In return for their even the Irish say that the fairies fell from heaven, that they know they're the fallen angels, and that they're evil, and that they're not to be trifled with at all. Everybody in Ireland says, don't make the fairies mad, don't trespass against them. And that, also these mermaids and sirens always pulled men down into the depths to drown them. So, in return for their foolish and wicked thoughts, which led them astray to worship irrational serpents and worthless animals, thou didst send upon them a multitude of irrational creatures to punish them, that they might learn that one is punished by the very thing by which he sins. For thy all-powerful hand, which created the world out of formless matter, did not lack the means to send upon them a multitude of bears or bold lions or newly created unknown beast full of rage, which is what we're going to get in the end times. The newly created unknown beast full of rage. Actually, they were created of old and saved for this last time. or such as breathe out fiery breath, or belch forth a thick pall of smoke, or flash terrible sparks from their eyes. Not only could their damage exterminate men, but the mere sight of them could kill by fright. And that's from the Wisdom of Solomon in chapter 11. Notice in this passage that Solomon speaks of these serpentine beings as being able to breathe out fire and belch forth a thick pall of smoke, and that these beings also have the ability to send forth sparks from their frightening appearance. The locust army of Revelation 9 is also discovered and is also described. Out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone, which issued out of their mouths. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails. For their tails were like unto serpents. He's describing dragons, and had heads. With them they do hurt. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the work of their hands. They should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and wood, which neither can see, nor hear, nor walk. Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts. And that is from Revelation chapter 9, written for us here in the last days. Notice that at the end of the days, the locust army will be sent by the Lord, Yahuwah, to torment those excluded from salvation. Salvation is a free gift. To be excluded is only by choice. To be excluded means we chose death. Let's choose life. Choose excluded from salvation. We don't want to be excluded from salvation, that we would not be written into the book of life. We want to be sure our names are in the book of life. Amen. This will include the lines of Cain, who are the children of the devil, that are the hierarchy of the New World Order, the current New World Order, led by the hybrid blood royal elites. Though they are those whom shall suffer the anguish of wanting to die, but are not allowed to do it. You ever wondered why Revelation says that they will wish for death? And well, it's not just because of everything that's happening. It's because Jesus said in other scriptures that he is going to put a seal over these underground bunkers, and they to come out of there again. And so they will wish for death, and they will try to commit suicide while they're down there, and it will elude them because, that's God's wrath on them. And then, of course, when they die, they will all go to hell. It is my contention that just as the children of Ham were punished by the fiery serpents during the tribulation of the Exodus, the children of Cain, who rule on the thrones of the world today, will also be punished by these same serpent locust beings. The locust army of Joel 2, and Revelation 9 are released with the loosening of the 4 angels who were long ago bound in the river Euphrates. These supernatural beings were detained for specific time and reason, and when the day of Yahuwah is at hand, these star gods will unveil themselves as the saviors, benefactors, and creators of what will be a devastated and destroyed humanity eager for global resolution. The anti-Messiah will be one of these supernatural beings able to offer up global resolutions to solve our planetary ails. This evil, evil man. Whether the anti-Messiah, antichrist, unveils himself as a physical flesh human or literally as a supernatural dragon giant-like being, we won't know until that day and that hour. However, I do believe that the locust army will return with the unveiling of the false Christ, and we know that to be true. And when it goes dark, you get down on your knees and you pray and you stay in your house and you don't look outside, and you will be raptured out, and those who are left behind will be left to face the Antichrist. And that's not my opinion. That is according to everything I've read in Scripture, but primarily the apostles of John. And the big lie that deceives even the most elect, should it be possible, is that these beings are our creators and benefactors when, throughout the duration of human history, they have worked to deceive and lead astray and destroy the children of Adam, even sought to prevent the birth of the Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach, through the woman's seed. The Word has warned us since time immemorial that this would be the end game for these beings and their anti-Messiah. In fact, the sign of Revelation 12, now this book was written in 2012 or 2010, and we know that this sign was in the sky in summer of 2017. So we are definitely, Yeshua is at the door. In Revelation 12, there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, moon under her feet, upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, pain to be delivered. This is a sign to the fallen ones that their time is up. So we're literally in the last seconds of the 7,000 years that Satan was allotted to repent. This sign is also a warning to humanity that the locust army would soon return to bring great destruction such as not been known since the destruction of the first world age, which utterly destroyed the earth and left it in total darkness. I would like to introduce the reader to important insight from a South African Zulu Sangoma named Credo Mutwa, born July 21st, 1920, to a Christian father and a Zulu mother. At the age of 14, Credo was initiated by one of his aunts, a Sangoma herself, taught by Credo's grandfather, an elder in traditional African wisdom. In his traditional knowledge, Credo alludes to Satan as being a serpent, an enchanter, much like the Nachash as described in Genesis 3 and Wisdom of Solomon. In his tribal tongue, the Nachash are called the Chitari or Chitali, which means the dictators, the ones who tell us their law. Referred to as Jabulon in his tradition, Satan is, according to his people, the king of the Chitali, who, like the basilisk, or Medusa of Greek mythology, possesses the power to kill humans by sight. That's why it tells us to go inside and, just pray and close the doors and windows and don't look out. Remember Lot's wife. Indoctrinated into legends, mythologies, and ancient traditions, we are not privy to hear the knowledge that Credo retains, which, if delved into, will confirm the biblical account of these ancient dragon beings, having been here long before modern humanity's presence upon this plane or planet. We call it Plane T. Tiamat was her original name, or Terra. But when the Chitari arrived in Africa, they told our people, okay, this is the elder man, the Zulu. They told our people that they were little g gods, that they were going to give us human beings great gifts on one condition. We had to worship them. We had to worship them. He says they had to worship them and accept them as their creators. That was the one condition to get all the gifts is that they must worship these Nachash and accept them as their creators. Some of them told our people that they were our elder brothers. That's the same lie that's going around in the New Age movement right now. And that this earth had produced them generations ago. And how about that lady that channels Abraham? And they said that they had come back to the green womb of their mother and that they were going to make us into gods. That's the same lie that Satan told Eve in the garden. And it's the same lie that, all the evil people right now on earth are buying into. Do as thou wilt. Be a god, Everything is for your own glory. And God wants you to be happy. And all this sugar-coated nastiness, none of it is true. None of it is true. We're here to prove ourselves to our Creator that we are worthy to return home. Amen. Jabulon, Satan. Jabulon is another word for Satan, another name. Jabulon, Satan, sir, is a very strange god. He is supposed to be the leader of the Chitali. He is a little g god to my great surprise, which I find certain groups of white people especially worshiping. We have known about Jabulon for many, many centuries, we black people, but I am surprised that there are white people who worship this little g god. And these people, that is Satan, and these people amongst them are people whom many have blamed for all the things that have happened on this earth, namely the Freemason people. We believe that Jabulon, Satan, is the leader of the Chitali. He is the old one. And one of his names in the African language, sir, is Umbaba Samahongo, the Lord King, the great father of the terrible eyes, because we believe that Jabulon has got one eye, which if he opens it, you die if he looks at you. And Satan literally means blind god, little g, known as the Immanucella. These people had come from the constellation known to white people as Orion, and they had inhabited our earth for thousands and thousands of years. We know they were cast down here before we were, and they had eons to do their thing. And that before they had left our earth to return once more to the sacred spider constellation, they call it, they made a great evacuation under the earth. My son is here to listen in. Before they had left they made a great evacuation under the earth, because beneath the Ruwenzori mountains, the mountains of the moon, and deep within the bowels of Mother Earth, the Immanucella built a city of copper buildings, a city with a wall of silver around it, a city built at the huge mountain of pure crystal, the mountain of knowledge, the mountain from which all knowledge on earth comes, and a mountain to which all knowledge on earth ultimately returns. And we know that all knowledge, all true knowledge, comes from Yahuwah, our Creator on the Most High. It doesn't come from a rock, because what? God created the rocks, right? So how could anything return to a rock? It would return to its Creator, not the rock. Amen. No matter where you go in Africa, no matter how deep into the interior of the dark continent you tread, you will find very ancient stories which are incredibly similar. You will find African tribes and races who will tell you that they are descendants from little g gods who came out of the skies thousands of years ago. Some, however, say that these little g gods came to them from the sea in magical boats made out of reeds or wood or copper or even gold. In some cases, these gods and goddesses are described as beautiful human beings whose skins were either bright blue or green or even silver. But most of the time you will find it being said that these great little g gods, especially the ones that came out of the sky, were non-human, scaly creatures which lived most of the time in mud or in water. Creatures of an extremely frightening and hideously ugly appearance. Some say that these creatures were like crocodiles, with crocodile-like teeth and jaws, but with very large round heads. Some say that these creatures are very tall beings with snake-like heads set on thin necks, or very long arms and very long legs. There are those that tell us that these little g gods who came from the skies traveled through the land in magical boats made of bright metal, silver, copper, or gold. Boats which had the ability to sail over water or even to fly through the sky. And we know them to be UFOs. Throughout Africa, we are told that these mysterious beings taught human beings many things. They taught human beings how to have laws, knowledge of herbal medicine, knowledge of arts, knowledge of the mysteries of creation and the cosmos as a whole. And it doesn't say here how they taught us how to kill and fight and be cannibals. We are told that some of these little g gods had the ability to change their shapes at will, to shapeshift. They had the ability to assume the shape and appearance of any creature that there is on earth whenever they wanted to do so. A sky little g god could even turn itself into a rhinoceros, an elephant, or even a shark, a stork, a fly on the wall, a rock. A sky god, little g, could even be a tree. In Africa, these mysterious gods, little g, are known by various names. In West Africa, in the land of the Bumbara people, these amphibian or reptilian sky gods are known as Zizwezi. The word Zishwezi means either the swimmers, the divers, or the gliders. It was said that these sky little g gods could dive from above the clouds down to the top of a mountain. And whenever they felt like it, they could also take deep dives into the bottom of the ocean and from there fetch magical objects and bring them to the shore, placing them at the feet of the astonished black people. In the land of Dogon people, we find the famous Nomo, a race of reptilian or amphibian beings who were said to have come from the Sirius star to give knowledge and religion to the black people of Dogon. One is told that when the Nomo arrived from the sky in their fantastic skyship, a UFO, as we know it, there were several of them, 13 or 14 of them, and they created a lake around their skyship, and every morning they used to swim from their skyship to the shores of the lake, and there preach to the people who had assembled in large numbers around the lake. It is said that before the Nomo departed, returning with a great noise back to their home star, they first chose one of their own number, killed it, cut its body up into little tiny pieces, and gave these pieces to the assembled people to eat. In the first sacrificial ritual of its kind on earth, and when the people had eaten the sacred flesh of the star creature and drunk its blood mixed with water, the Nomo took the lower jaw of that same creature, and by some incredible fact of magic, it's brought the whole creature back to life again. But of course, we know they were soulless. They were not created by Yahuwah. They were fallen. And we are told that this is the way that Nomo taught our people that there is no death, and that behind every death there shall be a resurrection, which that Jesus is trying to say, life, you will never have to go to hell and die forever. There is life after death. It is either life or death, and we're choosing that now. That is the choice. In the Americas, in South and Central America mostly, the feathered serpent is called Quetzalcoatl, and amongst my people, the Zulus, we find belief in a serpent called Yindlondlo. The Yindlondlo is said to be a huge mamba or a huge python whose neck is covered in grayish-blue feathers, like the feathers of a blue crane. And at the time of the feathers, one green one, one red one, and one white one, which looks like a huge ostrich tail feathers. The Yundlondlo, like the South American Quetzalcoatl, is associated with God, the Son of God. But we know that Quetzalcoatl was built by Enoch, the son of Cain, not Enoch, the son of Jared. So, their God is Satan. It is not the Most High God. I would like to highlight a few things that Credo spoke about in this testimony. First, notice that the Chitauri or Chitali, like the Anunnaki and Nephilim, are reptilian in nature and descend from the skies to the earth to initiate formal contacts with pre-Adamic human cultures still undeveloped, God bless you, in technology and organizational structure. So they were undeveloped. The assistance of the fallen ones to primitive pre-Adamic cultures became essential for the quick advancement and establishment for what became complex and highly organized societies. Fostering development, the fallen ones raised civilizations into ancient empires, sophisticated in societal construction and complex civil planning. These pyramidal, ziggurat-looking, megalithic-type structures and cities of grand size were simultaneously established on every continent. We know from other scripture that Yahuwah came down and created 36 cities for the children of the fallen Anunnaki. And they were to perfect pi, and we can still find those cities. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to the Jon Levi channel. He explores these pi city ruins. San Francisco is an excellent example. Okay. So these cities of grand size were simultaneously established on every planet and continent, every continent on the planet, and by people's science claims were supposedly working with only stone implements. Yeah, it's because Yahuwah came down and built these beautiful stone cities big enough for giants. It was fallen angelic knowledge and ability that propelled cultures to rise in quick advancement. Let's just look at the last 150 years for a good example of what happens when the fallen angels start giving us their technology. The pre-Adamic peoples who were fostered by the Anunnaki, not knowing any better, accepted and worshipped them as their gods. Like Adam and Eve of paradise, the pre-Adamic peoples could not comprehend the circumstances of the situation that they found themselves in. For why would anybody worship as God a being which demands blood ritual, victim sacrifice, and often cannibalistic behavior? Another thing of keen interest, which Credo alludes to, is the group of occult elitists whom we've come to know as the Freemasons. He claims that some members of these secret societies also worship them. They worship them. That's why you see the giant statues of these serpent beings. Yes, they worship them, especially the ancient serpent known to Credo's people as Jabulon, whom we know as Satan. This Jabulon is said to be king of the dragons, that's our Satan, and in possession of the ability to kill other creatures by sight. Jabulon is the great dragon that was cast out on the second day. He is the old serpent that Revelation 12:9 called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out in angels were cast out with him. Credos, as well as other African oral traditions, especially that of the Dogon tribe, relate these beings as coming from Orion and having lived here on the planet prior to the appearance of modern-day humanity upon the earth. That's because they were cast down first. Also mentioned, and then they tricked us to fall and to be cast down also. All interconnect various underground cities and bases claimed by many to be in existence. And I've heard online that people are saying that the booms and the trumpet sounds and the screams and the different noises, these big loud noises that are coming from the sky, are from them, making underground tunnels. Well, based on ancient scriptures and ancient books, we know that those underground cities and tunnels were there even before man was created, and they were just simply abandoned over time. Or, obviously they still live down there in hell, but these cities some of them are abandoned. And we can still... Credo says of the old gods that they were frightening in appearance and that they resembled crocodiles that walked upright and erect, much like the reference to the Nachash of Genesis chapter 3. One can hear in Credo's oral traditions and mythology confirmation that this species of being as having existed as part of the natural world experience. Notice also that Credo suggests their use of magical boats. We know them as UFOs, and like the Bible confirms, shape-shifting abilities, which is the biggest thing they don't want us to know about. They are shapeshifters. And while modern-day humanity might consider the existence of such intelligent reptilian-like entities to be fringe lunacy, the underlying truth is these beings have been with us for a very long time. They were here before we got here. And when I was in the New Age, I had read that they were here before we got here, and that they were driven underground, and that they want to come back up to the surface, and they want to be friends with us now. That's the message that they're spreading in the New Age movement. The same lies. Another intriguing aspect of Credo's testimony is that it aligns with the 36,000 BC testimony of Thoth, the Atlantean priest king, who described in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth how his people, the Atlanteans, had become involved with serpent-like interdimensional beings. It was these beings, cited as the sons of Belial or Baal or Molech, or sons of darkness, that taught them the ritual of these gates and doorways, which resulted in their releasing uncontrollable cataclysm upon the world, which affects us even to this day. This interaction resulted in the destruction of what was then the golden age of Atlantis and its archipelago empire. Of particular interest throughout the texts are the several passages referring to the dragon Anunnaki angels, fallen angels, as having the ability to possess bodies, absorb personalities, even embody human world leaders and rulers, in establishing their hidden rule over the children of men. Just like the seed of Cain has been hidden from us and stripped out of the Bible, so is their rule over us hidden behind the veil. It was the Nachash that led the Atlanteans to their ultimate demise as a people and nation. Thoth gives us detail in this text that it confirms the esoteric reality of the dragon lords and how their ancient race preceded that of modern humanity. These tablets also grant us insight into the historical destruction of Atlantis and how Thoth and his priesthood remnant were sent to the children of Chem to assist in the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. It would be his interdiction with the Egyptians, which would elevate their knowledge and capacity as a people, increasing their stature within the world. There are a few particular passages I'd like to highlight from these tablets to grant the reader further insight into what I have been discussing here, and I will put a link to that in the description, because I just made a video about it an hour ago, reading it already ahead of time. Yahuwah bless you and keep you. May he make his angels to stand guard over you and to guide you, guard you, protect you, and prepare your way every single day. Yahuwah bless this world. Thy will be done. All glory to the Most High God, our Creator. Yahuwah, thank you for our lives. Amen. Amen.